Welcome to the NaXum podcast. In the next few moments, you're going to get to meet real clients who have leveraged the NaXum technology to build their business. If you're looking for more information about NaXum itself, go to www.naxum.com, or if you want to view our most recent studies, go to www.naxumtour.com and take a look there. All right, let's go meet our guest.
Welcome to season 4 of the NaXum podcast. We are excited to bring you insights that actually work. So, hosted by Umar with our CEO Ben Dixon and our VP of Sales, Gary Engels. So, Umar, go ahead.
Thank you, Diana. Welcome, Ben and Gary. It's an exciting topic today to dive in, and it's called Clarity is the Real Multiplier. Ben, when we ask companies how a new person or member actually presents their business, many cannot answer clearly. Why is that such a big problem? Why there's unclear direction quietly slow down the growth, even when the product line is strong?
I saw this early on when I first started as a distributor in direct sales and network marketing. I know Gary did too in the beginning, right? You go to these training events and many times they'll have, 5 or 6 different leaders who are having success all share their method, right, at a Super Saturday or somewhere else. And I
Yeah.
remember walking away, Gary, where they would say, hey, you got to have at least 7 different, strategies for getting new people in your world. And the challenge a lot of times is if you have 5 or 6 different ways to present the business to someone online, or 5 or 6 different ways to present the business to someone offline, when you're having a conversation with somebody, your mind is kind of just garbled of, oh, which of
Mm,
these 12 options do I follow? Which of these 12 paths to have
yeah.
a conversation with this person? And so I've seen it so many times, and it's the new person goes into overwhelm, and it just looks like they don't have
Yeah.
confidence. The person they're speaking to is the issue, because if we can get it narrowed down to saying, okay, this is the one opportunity, this is the one way you present when you're offline, when you're face to face
Mm,
with somebody and you're in person, like here's how you walk them through the story of our business. And then when you're online, this is what you do for the story.
yeah.
Then it's just, oh, well, you can connect with people in all these 7 different ways or 8 different ways, but they all lead to the same thing. Oh, you're meeting in person? This is how it happens. Oh, you're meeting online? Here's how it happens. And that is wildly helpful because there's
Yeah.
no decision fatigue or friction or figuring out which hook I should use or which approach I should use. You can just plug them right into the clear path.
Yeah.
And I know in my world, we had physical presentations, we had physical opportunity meetings, we had physical follow-up sessions. We actually had nothing that was online. When I got started in this business, we were faxing in orders. Okay. So
hmm
Yeah.
it was literally the options were, can you come Wednesday night? We'll be at this hotel, or Thursday night we'll be at that office space and we'll meet, right? And that was all the options were. There weren't any other options of just building for events is what we did
Yeah.
in the world. What were the options when you started, Gary? What were the
Yeah,
things you were inviting people
local
to?
hotel meetings is how we started. Yeah, and
And
there, I mean, I guess it was just the start of the online stuff, right? It was just the
yeah,
beginning of some of
Mm,
the different tools and things like that, but certainly not refined the way they are now. And I think that sometimes that when you talk about clarity, Umair, I think that a lot of people look at it like when people, my team, they're just not motivated, to do the
yeah.
work. They're lazy, right? And it's not lazy. It's not lack of motivation. It's
Yeah.
lack of clarity, right? Because
True.
I think that it's like you said too, Ben. You get jumbled. You get
Yeah.
the mind gets
Too many
overloaded.
options.
You have too many options, right? And all of a sudden, you do nothing. It's easier to take inaction because you don't want to take the wrong action, right? And I think
True.
that's important is you don't lack motivation, you lack clarity. And when you have clarity, when you have a very clear path of,
Yeah.
do this, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, I can do those two things, the simple
Yeah.
action, the daily, actions. I can do that.
Yes.
Well, that starts to add in, and there's a thing that we talk about all the time is that little things add up to big things. And if you can just focus on just that little thing, that little daily action today, all of a sudden at the end of the month, you're like, wow, I did a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Ben, I think I told you the story of the 52,000 push-ups I did in a year. It was part of a black belt test that I did, right? I had to do 52,000 push-ups in one year. And you look at
Wow.
that and you're like, oh my God, I'm not motivated to do all that. I can't, that's a lot. And you break it down and it's really just 150 a day. And even that
Yeah.
sounds like a lot, but I'm like, well, you know what? I can do 50 push-ups. So I'm going to do 50 in the morning. I'm going to do
Yeah.
50 at lunch. I'll do 50 at night. And if you couldn't do that,
Yeah.
okay, great. You do 10, but you
Yeah.
do 10, 15 times throughout the day. It's every half hour you do 10, or whatever. And all of
True.
a sudden you
Mhm.
start to realize you're like, I can break it down to the smallest common denominator. And to the point where you have clarity, you're like, you know what? I can do 10. I can do that. And then all of a sudden you look back at the end of the year, you're like, man, I just did 52,000 push-ups, like whatever
Wow.
that thing is in
So
your
Yeah.
wow.
business. You're like, you look back and you're like, I did that. Right.
I love that part because I always tell people, you finish what you start, your
Yeah.
integrity with
Yeah.
yourself. And what you just talked about is so good with the 52,000 push-ups because if your team members, here you're listening to this show and you're running a direct selling company, if they in their minds cannot see the path from A to B, like they can't see it, they're not going to do it. If their brain can't connect, oh, how does this goes to that, goes to the sale, this goes to that, goes to the new recruit, this goes to that, goes to that member ranking up. Like if it's not clear, like if that's not connected up, oh yeah, that's how it would naturally occur. Like that's just how it naturally occurs if you do these steps. That's the fruit. If that's not happening, they're not going to take the initial actions that are required for the fruit to come. And so I
Yeah.
love that picture, Gary, of like,
Yeah.
because if you say, oh, I'm
Absolutely.
going to do 52,000 push-ups, and you're like,
Yeah.
1,000 a week. How do I fit in 1,000 push-ups a week? Is it just on Saturday? I just pop out 1,000 push-ups and drink some protein shakes? Like, no, that's not how you do 1,000 push-ups a week. To
Yeah.
your point, you break it up.
Ben, we have seen serving clients, in our space that teams have been doubling down the revenue per active rep just by removing around 20% of inefficiency. What is the most common distraction or habits that usually need to go first?
The whole 20% conversation is interesting is that a lot of times when we're measuring a sales funnel, right? This would have been our 2025 trends report we published through
Yeah.
DS. We talked about how most people measure conversions from like a presentation to a purchase, right? And we
Yeah.
don't measure the step before that is like how many conversations and invites did it take to get someone to a presentation? So just for context for everybody on the podcast, this 20% thing was we realized that if you can just remove 20% of the waste of
Yes.
invites that get someone to an actual presentation, you mathematically, and it's kind of wild. If you want a copy of last year's report, we'll just comment to us on social and we'll get it to you in the notes. It's wild to even say this out loud. You actually double your revenue per sales rep number. So think about that for a second. You have 10,000 sales reps and you're doing X in revenue per month. The one thing you can affect as a corporate company is if you just remove 20% of the waste on the
Yeah.
step of invites to presentation, you earn double the revenue per sales rep across your cycle. And so we've talked about how to get the data to do that in a bunch of different ways, whether you're using predictive mobile apps or how you're tracking on the back end to get the information to realize what's wrong or what's not. But when it comes to distractions, I'm all about the RGAs, right? We used to teach revenue generating activities. A lot of people, we have to remember, are not programmed to be self-employed or have their own
True.
business, be accountable to themselves. It's never been in their programming. Our school systems don't teach that unless you attended Gary's martial arts school where you learn those kinds of things, right? Like you don't learn self-accountability in your
Yeah.
life today in America. And so the big key is getting wildly clear on like it's not about getting your desk in order. It's not about making sure all your contacts names are perfect in the CRM and you filled out every possible field of contact
True.
information, their name, and you have every social profile put into the CRM properly before you start reaching out. It's like, no, what is the actual revenue generating activity? Yeah, it's 30 new touches every day. What is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 30 brand new touches every day. And then it's never ending your day without following up with everybody who can be back, right? It's being
Yes.
responsive of, oh, I'll get to those. People always like, no, they responded that they were interested now. Go take it to the next step, right? With them. And it's returning voicemails. Yeah, you
Yeah.
may call 30 people and no one picks up the phone, but then you go out throughout your day, through your other gigs or whatever you're doing, right, as a distributor, and voicemails are coming in. Yeah, the magic is returning those calls. Like this isn't
Yes.
rocket science, but you'd be amazed how many people are like, oh yeah, I just didn't have time to return their call. They called on Monday and now it's Thursday. And it's like, no, you missed it out by clearly
Yes.
defining those RGAs of what they are and then providing messaging that works. A lot of times your reps complain about your corporate systems because they're like, I don't get conversion out of it. So it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So you complain about the field as a corporate leader being like, well, they don't use our corporate tools. Look at all the things we invested in. And they're like, well, we don't use them because it doesn't convert. So you
Yeah.
have to humble yourself a little bit here, corporate team members, right? Of understanding that if your stuff worked, it's not
Yes.
always ego. All these field leaders are so egocentric. It's actually not true. If your out of the box stuff cranked results and got new customers and new promoters with them, they wouldn't go through all the other work of creating
Yeah.
numbers. They would follow the process. And those are a couple of the pieces I've seen. And Gary, what have been some of you've had teams for years. What's some of your favorite ways to remove waste for people on the team?
There's distraction in like the busy work that we do, right? It gets disguised as productivity. cleaning the
Yeah.
desk and all the little things. And I think if we could just get rid of that waste, I think it makes a huge difference in the results that we see at the end. It's very easy to, sit back and look at the clarity of that RGA, right? That simple idea. That's all I have to do today, but then put it off and I'll do it later today. I'll do it later today. I'll do it later today. Right. Because, you had to answer those social media posts. Right. I mean, those are, and you're just totally distracted and overthinking, what it was and all the drama of it or whatever. Right. And it's like that took time, and then you got to do the graphic redesign in your website or whatever, because that's really important, all these different things, they got to clean the desk and it's just
Write a blog post. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, really important stuff. And then all of a sudden you look back at your day and you're like, man, I lost today, and, starting the day, I think is such an important thing, right? Again, you don't lack motivation, you lack clarity. If you had the clarity to say, I'm going to start my day by hitting these numbers, and then the rest of the day I have whatever I want to do, right? But do the hard, eat the frog, right? Do that hardest thing, right? Right at the beginning of the day. And all of a sudden, and as a corporate team, now, if you step back and you say, this is the simple clarifying RGA, this is the simple activity, this is the thing that you need to go do today, right? And you just simplify it and make it easy for that person, you're going to watch the activity, the action start to produce, the productivity start to exceed your expectations because you've simplified it down to the basic common denominator.
One other exercise that's really powerful in your field, it's the practice of time blocking. A lot of times too, for moving waste is people, I just don't have the time. And one of the things I love to do is invite a new team member, and you can teach this in your field for your leaders. Have them invite somebody who's on their team to just every night go ahead and fill out what they did every half an hour of the day, and whether it's in a Google sheet or wherever that is. And then at the end of the week, have them present that back to you of saying, oh, wow. Then have them set an intention every night, that second week, before they start their next day. Don't go into the next day without every half an hour of their day in their calendar having something in it, right? Where they defined it ahead of time. What you'll find is many people go into fasting on a certain part of their life, right? They're going to, okay, I'm not going to keep watching Netflix. I'm going to fast from that for the next 60 days because that was taking up too much time in my life while I go build my business. I'm going to take a Netflix sabbatical, right? Just going to leave that for 60 days. But they see that themselves, or, oh, wow, I get lost in these shorts on YouTube, these little short things that hit me with dopamine. Oh, yeah, they take my mind. And they, when they're honest about it, they're like, yeah, I'm wasting 90 minutes a day in shorts on YouTube, right? And then when they see it themselves, it becomes their idea of, oh, I know I'm going to get the hour to go build my business. I'm going to go fast from shorts on YouTube, right? And so those are some really good practices I have found helpful for the sales teams in general.
Also, Ben, the report talks about building a system, simple enough for someone to win in their first week. What has to be true in the sales path for that to really happen, not just on a paper?
That's such a powerful question, because I think of the people who promote our companies as 1099 reps, kind of like volunteers at a church. Right? They're not employees, right?
Yeah.
This is a volunteer army of people who've signed up to promote your stuff. Or if you think about your children, right? They're not your employees, right? As you're raising children. So when do we get frustrated with a volunteer or a child? When we expect them to be something they're not, right? So what I love about your question many, many, many times is you say like, hey, someone in their first week's going to make a sale. Really? What do we expect the person in their first week to even be able to do? And in my mind, all I expect them to be able to do is create curiosity with others and get them to something else, right? I don't expect them to explain, convince, handle objections. No, I don't expect them to be doing any of that in the first week. And so some of my favorite things we've ever done inside of NaXum for helping the newest person is we've had many, many clients. I mean, we're over 170-ish clients now, enterprise clients, since I started on the team. And we've had a lot of success in these daily live stream presentations where every day we go live, usually 9 p.m. Eastern, or if it's a professional opportunity, noon. In that world, we track who invited who, and then we present on their behalf and close on their behalf. And it's awesome for the new person because all they have to do is ask a simple question to create curiosity and say, hey, there's actually an event at 9 o'clock tonight. I'd love for you to attend, or 8 o'clock Central, or 7 Mountain, right? And if I send you the link, would you have a moment to check it out? Sure. And that is really simple. We had a company named Canaway in 2014. That was the first group that took us up on this. This is before they were owned by MJ&A. And this was all very public. They put all this stuff on Facebook, so not share anything private. They enrolled 80,000 people in the first 4 months. And all they taught people to say, because it was compliance and it was CBD back then, was, hey, why don't you Google CBD? And then when you do, you got to come to this webinar at 9 o'clock tonight. If I send you the link, would you be opposed to checking it out? And that's all they taught the new person, because they didn't have to teach them anything else. Hey, could you Google CBD? I think this is something you would be interested in. And would you be opposed to me popping you a link for the webinar? No, I want to be opposed. Perfect. Here, I'll text you the link. That was all they taught. In the Servia, that used to say, hey, can you Google what Google Nearby is, right? Oh, what's Google Nearby? They were doing Bluetooth beacons for push notifications for restaurants, businesses, realtors, right? 30 plus thousand people in that program, right? Quickly. It's like 6 months. And iMarkets Live, before they went through some of the drama and changes and moral stuff that you can read online in their early years, we had a lot of success with, hey, Google Forex trading. What is Forex trading? Just go
Yeah.
Google it. We're doing a webinar at 9 o'clock. You should see how these guys are doing it. And so it was, if you think about that, each of those companies, there was hundreds of thousands of people enrolled in those companies quickly. And the new person could do it because they didn't have to explain CBD and science. They didn't have to explain how Forex trading worked. They didn't have to explain how Google nearby and Bluetooth beacons could be a promotional strategy for your local business to nearby people with mobile devices. No, they didn't explain any of that. No one was explaining any of that. All they were doing was saying, hey, go Google this, and then you should check out this webinar now.
Yeah.
Some of the wild going on. They were just creating curiosity. No convincing, coercing, handling objections. And I believe the new person can do that. And that first week is an important part of the question because when someone gets social proof of someone enrolling on their team in the first week, the math's wild. Actually, Gary, I was telling you about Dave Fleming, who runs Neora today. He spoke on our DSEF podcast a while back, and he shared that out of Neora's data. If someone made even $1 in the first, it was 14 days on his data, they were 27 times more likely to still be actively promoting the company and active in the program
Yeah.
1 year later. I love that fact. I reference it all the time on their podcasts because I'm like, we all know that, but we don't know that because we don't live that way.
It's simple. It's
Yeah.
measurable, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
those
Yep.
initial goals, right? Something like I can do one, right? I can do one.
Yeah.
That's simple. And
Yeah.
and when you get that one, you get that one person
Yeah.
on the call that evening, or whatever, right? You get that one. That's a win. You got to celebrate that win. Now, whether they got started or not is really irrelevant, right? It's like, you got that person to show up to a call. You got that person to say, you know what? Yeah, that's interesting, right? If you can just start with just the curiosity, right? And get that person to consistently do that one thing every day, right? As Keller would say, the one thing, right? What's that one simple idea, that one simple thing? You don't have to go down this path of like learning the comp plan and learning all the skills and learning all these things and whatever. What's that simple, measurable, realistic, attainable, and timely goal that you can achieve, today and actually just get on the board, right? And celebrate. And that's one thing I love about the app that that NaXum has generated here, Ben, is it really focuses on just what's that one thing you can do today and just mark it down. And an accountability side is everything too. It's self accountability, right? I did this, right? I'm going to do this today. But your team, I know my leader can see that. I know that person that that is watching and is going to see whether I did that thing today or not. So you have the accountability from your leadership, and that's such an important piece too. Going back to the push-up example, because I think it's relevant. Sure. It is like there was a time I was traveling and I was gone for like a week, and I got back after the week and I realized that I really didn't do my push-ups all week. Like there was one day in there I was traveling, I was at hotels and things like I just kind of got away. It was early on in the process. And you can go back and say, well, man, that one thing is no longer 150 push-ups. Now it's 300, and now that's hard, right? It's like it becomes a downward spiral of trying to catch up. And nobody wants to be in that place. And so the next day, then I did 1,000 push-ups to catch up. And so I just pumped them out, and it was 50 push-ups every 15 minutes for 5 hours, and we just broke it down. And but the idea is, again, it's radical personal responsibility. And to that point here, Ben, you don't lack motivation, you lack clarity. And the clarity is the real multiplier. So if you can clarify and just get it down to a very simple idea, very simple, this one thing that you want to do today, and then build from that. Once you're consistently doing that thing, now you can start to build.
One of the bigger pictures our trends report represents is that data only works when the system is clear, as you said. Well, leaders invest in daily, heavily in dashboards. How should they think about data after the sales path is finally clean and simple?
I think it's always about recognition and honoring those that are doing it. In our world, some of the dashboards we've had that are helpful is like who's committed to daily habits and who's on the longest streak in the company and who on the team's on the longest streak. Some of the ones I like is like who in the company got the most people to live streams this week and who on the team got the most people to live streams this week. Like it's wildly fun to give shout outs to someone who's literally only been here for 2 weeks, on your training call. And it kind of kicks everyone else's butt of like, everyone look at Rafael Gomez. Look at what he's doing. And oh my gosh, look at Joanna. Like these guys have been here for less than 50 days and they're
that's it.
crushing
If he can
leaderboard.
do it, I can do it thing, right?
Oh,
It's like,
yeah, I'm all for the positive FOMO, right? I'm not into the
right.
fake weird FOMO, but I love it. I love that together we see that they could do it. I mean, I know that to your point, Gary, there was a gal that barely spoke English that had moved here from China who had married an American businessman that I met at a Super Saturday when I was 17 years old, 18, and right when I'm about to turn 18 to get in this business. In that business, she had made $50,000 that month. And she was on stage teaching at Super Saturday. I'm sitting here like, if Ting can make, and her name was Ting,
Yeah.
so not just making it a name. I'm like, if Ting can make 50 grand in this business, and she married an American businessman, moved to Oak Brook, Illinois from China, and is just learning English. Like, what is my excuse? This gal's just
Yeah.
same thing they teach at this event. She hasn't added anything to it. She's just learning American culture and is jumping in. And so I very much so remember that moment of like, oh, if he could do it, I can do it. And I love creating those moments. That's what I believe dashboarding does. It creates
Mhm.
these moments of like something awesome is happening here. Why not me? Right?
Yeah.
You nailed it, Gary. That's where it's
Yeah.
at.
And data can't fix confusion, right? The sales path is messy. Dashboards just show you messy
Yeah.
numbers faster, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, first you simplify the path. You have one way to invite. You have
Yeah.
one place to send people, right? One event that closes, right? One thing to focus on, and then the data becomes more powerful because it's measuring something consistency, right? Consistently,
True.
right? And the
Yeah.
idea is that if you have all these different things being pumped into this dashboard, it's hard to actually read the data, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to get consistency in any kind of like the scientific method, right? It's like you want to make just one variable,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
It fixes your emotions too. What I love about the data, what Gary just said, is I got to a place in my business when I was really young, and I realized we had our initial presentation and then we had our follow-up presentation. We had two steps in our sales process because we were selling a $20,000 product in direct sales. I realized that 1 out of 3 people who made it to this step, the second step, the follow
Yeah.
up, bought from me. And I would make 10 grand a sale. And so it didn't matter in the process emotionally, like if you're buying from me or you're buying, like there was no
Yeah.
attachment to like
Mhm.
which one buys from me. I just knew that 1 out of 3 of you is going to wire me the money. And
Yeah.
it was really fun at that point when you looked at your numbers and you're like, yeah, 1 out of 3 send me the money after this step in the process. It changed it all to being about like what I need and more just about
Yeah.
service and love and what they need, right? And just being available to serve and love people well. And when you can get your distributors and your promoters operating out of need or despair or challenges in their own life, they're not going to attract anything good. And so you got to get them back to gratefulness and loving people well and a heart of service. When you show them, we have an exercise we used to teach called income math, and I still teach this for NaXum clients on stage all the time of like,
Yeah.
with this many go to this step, and this many go to this step, and this many go to this step. It takes the whole emotion out income math wise because you just show up and serve and love people well, knowing 80 people in over here, I got 10 over here that bought, and that's my check. And it's a very cool place to operate from.
Yeah, Ben, I have nothing to add to that. It's amazing. It's a great place to end it, I think, and just say it. And it's just love people, man.
That's
Just
that's what it
literally
is.
just keep putting people in the system, and make it about them. And some will,
Yeah.
some won't. So, next.
Yeah, the some will, some
Yeah,
won't, so what thing
yeah,
was taught for a long time.
right.
And
Yeah.
I always think like, hey, we're going to present. It's almost like you can compare it to different things in your life. Bring it to faith for a second. This may be a good example for people. I know we have people of all faiths that listen to the show, but I'm a Christian, right? And what we teach when we share our faith of Jesus in our life with other people is we don't control when someone else says, "Oh, I'm going to surrender my life to Jesus." Like I don't control that. I believe is that the Holy Spirit works on people's hearts, and He's the one that prepares somebody for when they see who God is and His love for them and decide to surrender their life to Him. And so that same attitude of sharing your faith with other people, of just here's what God's done in my life, and loves me more than I ever deserved, and I'm blown away when I truly started to understand God's love of what it meant because it's unlike all other faiths where it was undeserved, and yet He loves me anyway. And I start to explain that to people. I also don't expect that like I have the magic words that they will then themselves choose to move
Mm.
forward in my same faith, right? I actually don't expect that. I may just be planting a seed or sharing a thought or edifying that thought. And so in sales, right, for your people and your promoters, right, when they know the income math of the numbers, they can let go of that result and still do the work and still walk through sharing and still walk through loving and serving people well, knowing that it'll be okay. On the other side, knowing that they're not like I don't control them making a decision. You can lead the horse to
Yeah.
water, you can't make them drink, right? So
True.
it's that same picture. And when you teach that, it's a big load off their shoulders because you don't want every every no or every not now that will happen. It's just gonna happen in the sales process. To feel like, oh, Ben, you said the wrong thing. If you only use this magic NLP line right here, they would have whipped out their credit card. And it's like, well, the NLP stuff works, all this other stuff works, everything works, nothing doesn't. But they're not a robot. I don't control them. And I also don't know their whole story. I can listen for
Yeah.
hours. And I also don't know what's going on in their life. They may be saying, oh, I'm totally going to do this on Thursday, but I have to just finish this other thing the last 2 days, or whatever that is. And so I just show up and love people well, and I invite and I move them ahead, trusting for the ones that it's right and it's here, they're going to move forward. And for the ones that's not for the other reason, maybe it's later, maybe it's no, and that's okay. And it didn't mean that I did it wrong on that side as we continue to tweak and grow our skills.
Yeah,
But
Ben, I can add a dramatically different perspective to that, different analogy.
Sure.
And I just had an interview or a conversation with I had a private lesson the other day, and so I was
Sure.
teaching this guy jujitsu, and he's a professional realtor, very successful realtor. And we were just having this conversation about how like in jujitsu, like I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this, I'm just going to push here and test this move and test this move, and eventually one of them is going to work, right? What, the arm bar is there, or whatever. And the idea is like, it doesn't matter which one works. I can't force it. I can't go into it being like, I have to get this move, that kind of thing. I can't
if I
force
don't get the
anything.
arm bar, it's not going to happen.
It's not there, right? You can't force it, right? You can't. But the one that works is the one they never saw coming. The one that works is the one that it wasn't prepared. It just kind of just flowed and happened, right? And so we had this conversation after the lesson about his real estate business and how it's the same thing. And it's no difference. And any sales situation is exactly the same way. It's like, you're gonna try this one, you're gonna try that one, and some of the sales that work are the easiest possible thing ever, right? It's like, you talk to them, they said, yeah, I'll check it out, and they signed up that night, or whatever, right? And then other ones, like, you've been working on this person for 3 months, you've been taking them out to lunch, they're interested, they're on board, and then all of a sudden, it's like, months later, and they finally get started, or they don't, the 3 months later, and all of a sudden, finally, they say, you know what, this really isn't for me. I mean, you spend so much time and effort working with this person, but none of it is wasted.
Yes.
Right? It's all part of the
Gary's
process, right? It's all part of the process, and just
and
moving people forward.
And if you tried to judge which one to do, you would never win anything, right? You have to do the reps no matter what, is the whole point. So go do your reps, is the whole thought. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, King, this was just an awesome treat. Umair, thank you for hosting. Gary, thank you for just
Thank you, guys.
jumping on and your insights and thoughts, and Diana for all that you do. Love this podcast episode today. For those of you that are looking for more information or want to see the actual trends report itself, it's available on NaXum.com. In the top header, we got a highlight that's up there right now. Will also be available in the show notes. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
If you're looking for more information about NaXum itself, go to www.naxum.com, or if you want to view our most recent studies, go to www.naxumtour.com and take a look there.